I'm wearing cubes, and if you're watching this video, you've probably watched my shorts, and I'm pretty sure most of you didn't subscribe or like the shorts. So anyway, like I said, there were some cavemen who were basically NPCs, but they invented villages, built villages, but villages as they are now got boring, and they decided to found a kingdom. So we had King Daedalus as our king for this story, because Minecraft doesn't actually mention a king at all throughout the game. So King Daedalus was a huge genius, and he invented a couple of things which I will begin listing now. First, he invented the nether portal. They were like, oh my gosh, I'm going to build something that is going to be so cool for decorating my palace, and then it just lights up. So he goes in, sees what's on the other side. He finds like a very plain nether with almost zero mobs. The only mobs he found was the alley. I know that sounds far-fetched, but it's the only possible explanation, because when the allies died, their souls seeped into the ground, forming soul sand, and soul sand emits blue flames and blue sparks, which is the same color of that of the alley. So King Daedalus came back to the overworld, gathered some of his people, and went in. Together they built up the nether fortress, and they had a pen of pigs. In the process of trying to bring the pigs into the pens, some of them escaped into the Crimson Forests. They ate some mushrooms and they became hoglins. So they were left to roam alone, and they still attack players because the people of that time brought the pigs into the nether, enslaving them and never releasing them again. The other pigs were kept safely in the piglins' pens, which is that room in the fortress which just has soul sand and nether wart. So the pigs' main food was the nether warts, as you might have guessed. King Daedalus also filled the fortress with chests and loot in case there was an attack and he needed backup. So one day, Acros, the Prince Acros, the sole heir to the throne, wanted to feed the pigs and get some pork for dinner. He got there, but he met zombie piglins. Like, imagine your surprise, you leave pigs there, you meet zombie piglins. Well, what caused their transformation is that they ate too much of the nether warts, which turned them into monsters. So Prince Acros thought they would actually drop pork. Like, why would he think that? So he killed one, and as my guess, they all rushed him. So he cried for help. King Daedalus heard him screaming all the way from the corridors of the fortress. But by the time he got to Icarus' location, it was too late. All that was left of the prince was a 3x3 patch of soul sand and a wither skull in the middle of it. King Daedalus tried to bring his son back to life, but that resulted into a few mistakes. First, he tested on the soul sand and wither skulls of some slaves he sacrificed to the piglins in order to test how he would bring his son back. As you might guess, tired of using that. Well, he brought the slaves back, but as withers, and these withers were so big and dangerous that they chased the people out of the fortress and the nether entirely. They blasted the portals with their wither skulls and broke them completely on the nether side. It broke them partially on the overworld side as well. It also blasted some netherrack into the overworld which just shows you how powerful those attacks were. If you noticed the gold blocks on top of the ruined portals, those that gold actually represents King Daedalus' royalty, meaning that they were just property of the king. So, um, pause. So the Withers attacked some other mobs which they could lay their hands on, which were only the allies. They killed them all, well, most of them. Some of them got like mutated and turned into ghasts. Some of the others ran into lava and got turned into blazes. This also sounds like a huge guess, but it makes sense because those three mobs, the allay, the ghast, and the blaze, are flying mobs, and the ghast and the blaze shoot projectiles at players because that was the method of destruction which was used by the Withers against them. So, back in the overworld, King Daedalus continued his many experiments to bring back Icros. He guessed that the others came back as dangerous mobs because they were angry at the Nether because that was where they had died. So he took the skulls and sand of the strongest people who had died in the Nether. He experimented with Icros' skull as well, putting it in the middle of the two strongest skulls on the tea of soul sand. This formed a final wither which destroyed the entire kingdom. It actually blasted some parts or sides of the kingdom into the sea, which causes what we know as ocean ruins. Some of those ruins, well, all of them actually still have loot from King Daedalus' kingdom. So the surviving people of the kingdom were split into two groups. These two groups never met each other and they journeyed separately. One of which was the group of King Daedalus. They journeyed, well, fled far away until eventually they decided to build an underground structure. King Daedalus instructed them to build the stronghold, and he designed it like a maze, so even if the Wither got in, it will have trouble finding them out. But King Daedalus, like any other king, was pretty paranoid, and he invented the end portal as well. But he only decided to use it as a last resort because, like the Nether, the end could have been dangerous. Eventually they came where the Wither found the people of the stronghold. It destroyed the entire thing and they were forced to flee into the portal. In the end, blah blah blah, I'll get to that soon. When everybody fled, someone decided to chicken out and stay behind. The Wither wasn't interested in him and wasn't interested in following the people into the portal as well, because he had suddenly gained interest in the other group of people who had escaped. When the Wither had gone, and when the escaper was sure that he was gone, he rebuilt the stronghold as a tomb because he guessed that the people who went in to the portal would never come back. He must have guessed right because in the end the people arrived at the island of the Ender Dragon. As might have guessed, they fled again until they got to a very far location. There they built the End City and the End City ships.